Welcome to another Being Outdoor Words of Matthias. This time we're going to take a look at 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6. And it's a verse that we've probably all heard before. It's a very short verse, but it has a great deal of meaning. I'm going to try to talk about it, and hopefully we can apply some of this to our lives. It says in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6, "But godliness with contentment is great gain." That verse is about, let's see, about 6, 7 words. But godliness with contentment is great gain. Let's break that down. It says with godliness. Let's talk about what godliness is. The Bible, if you flip over in 1 Timothy, I believe it's 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 5, it says, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. And in those verses there, Paul is talking about having a form of godliness, but not having any power. Meaning that we can play church, but not really be godly. Okay? Take, for instance, this. How many people do we know, whether it's somebody we work with, a friend, neighbor, somebody in family, that claims to be a Christian, maybe even go to church, but when they're not in church, you couldn't tell if they were a Christian or not if you didn't know any better. Okay? I used to hear people say this. There should be enough evidence in your daily life that people could convict you of being a Christian. Okay? That's being godly. All right? And having godliness. When the Bible says having a form of godliness, and when I've talked about this before, I always think about taxidermy for whatever reason. You know, a few years ago, in different times where I've shot animals, I go to the taxidermist place, and he'll have these forms, okay, in a big book that you can choose from. Those forms are white, if you've seen those books before, and I'm sure all of you have. And you look at those forms, they're harmless, okay? They're a likeness of the animal, okay, but they don't even look like an animal. You know, they're all white. And then he takes that fur and the antlers and all the pieces, whether it's the bear, turkey, whatever it is you shot, and he puts that on that form. And it begins to look lifelike. It looks more like the real thing. Let's take, for instance, a bear. Okay, a bear is a big animal, top of the food chain, can kill any one of us, human beings. Okay, that bear has all power when it's in the woods. But when it's hanging on the wall and you're looking at the form of that bear, it's the form of a bear. It looks like the bear. It's the exact skin of the bear. But it doesn't have any life. It doesn't have the power of what that bear had or what that bear did possess before it was killed. Okay? That's what the Bible's talking about. Having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. You know, we can go to church. We can sit in a pew. We can tell everybody we want to that we're a Christian. But do we live like we're a Christian? Okay? You know, the Bible talks about how in that day, Jesus said, many will say, Father, didn't we know you? And he'll say, depart from me, you workers of iniquity. Okay? Those are people that claim to be Christians, but they never were. You know, to have that power is first the power to be saved, that you know you're on your way to heaven. Okay? And then after that, do we live a life that's godly? Meaning that others can look at us, look at our actions, look at the way we live, and say that person's a Christian. Okay? Does that person not tell dirty jokes? Does that person not cuss? Does that person not drink? Does he not listen to the wrong types of music? How does he carry himself? You know, is he a hothead? Has he got a bad temper? You know, one of the greatest things I get to do is sometimes just coach my kids' ball teams. Okay? You can really see true godliness a lot of times with these ball games, where referees and people have to threaten to stop games because parents get so upset, and parents are wanting to fight on the sideline sometimes over a call or something in a second or third grader soccer game. That means nothing. Okay? Do we have a form of godliness, but do we deny the power? Okay? The Bible says, but godliness. Okay? Godliness is that complete package. One, knowing that you're saved. You can't be godly unless you're saved. And then on top of that, do you live that life that's pleasing to the Lord? Do you honor the Christ with your life? Does others look at you and see that? And it says, but godliness with what? Contentment. Wow. Contentment. I always say contentment is one of the greatest attributes that any human being can learn. You know, the Bible says that to be content with such things as ye have. And so many times, are we not content with where we're at? You know, a lot of times when I say contentment, especially with adults, the first thing we think about is money. You know, am I content with what I have? You know, so many times we think, well, if I just had a little bit better job, I could get a little better house, or I could get a little better car, go on a little bit nicer vacation, maybe do something special with my kids or friends. Why don't we just content with what we have? Well, what God's given us, okay? You know, we look at other people and we say, well, that person's, and I broke this down for teenagers and kids, but this goes for adults too. You look at somebody who's successful, okay? Maybe has a great job, or makes a lot of money, and or maybe intelligent, a doctor or lawyer or something, and you think, well, why can't I be like them? Well, what's wrong with the way God created you? Okay, be content. And then we can take that forward. Be content with your talents, what God's given you. You know, we can always look at other people and say, well, man, that person can really preach, or that person can really teach. Why can't I be like that? Be content with the talents God's given you, and use those talents to the best of your abilities for God's glory. You know, I tell kids all the time, I say, not everybody's an A student, okay? I always say grades are relative to hard work, and hard work's relative to intelligence. And what I mean by that is, there are people that can make straight A's, they don't have to put in a whole lot of work. And there's other people that have to put in a whole lot of work to get an A, okay? I think a lot of people can attain, a majority of people can attain good grades in A, B, or C. It's just a matter of them working to get to where they want to. You know, so many times I have kids tell me, say, well, I could do better, but I just don't. And you know, we all need to strive to do the best. You know, I say, I don't care if it's A, B, or C, as long as you are doing your best and you're performing to the best of your God-given potential. If God's given you an ability, by all means, you ought to use that to the best of your abilities and do the best with it. You know, there are, whether it's a bus ride at church or so many times, I think in churches, we get caught up in positions. You know, just like you do in jobs. You know, people say, you know what, that guy's a vice president. If I could just be a vice president, I would be set. If I could just be a manager, if I could just get to a supervisor, if I could just get that level. And you think about these political levels that you have with jobs and career things. But you see that sometimes with churches and serving the Lord, where somebody says, well, I wish I could just preach at this church, or preach at certain churches. Or I wish that I wasn't a Sunday school teacher. I wish I was an assistant pastor. Or nobody sees me down here teaching this bus Sunday school class. Or nobody sees me down here in this nursery. God sees you. And on top of that, be content with what you have. Be content with the ministry that God's given you. You know, God doesn't measure ministries by numbers. So many times, as humans, we get that in our head, that, you know, a church that runs 2,000 is this great ministry of God, versus a church maybe back in the sticks that has 20. God doesn't see it that way. You know, and God gives the increase and gives the people the ability to do the jobs that they have to serve Him. But we just need to learn to be content. But the Bible says in this verse, it says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. You know, the Bible talks about gain. Was it good for a man to gain the whole world, lose his own soul? The Bible says in Joshua 1:8, it says, this book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou must meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. Good success is not academia, it's not money, it's not possessions. It's the peace of God in your heart, knowing that where you're going to spend eternity. And the peace of God in your heart, knowing that you're trusting the Lord with all your heart, leaning not to your own understanding, in all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy paths. That is great gain. The Bible says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. Not one in and by itself, but together. Those two together can give you a successful, happy, victorious life in Christ, if you can manage those two things. Those are two very tall orders, but one that each of us can attain with the help of Jesus. I hope this has been a blessing and help to you. If you have any questions about what you've seen or heard, you can email us at Eric, E-R-I-C, @beangoutdoors.com. You can also give us a call at 336-564-2400. We'll be glad to talk to you about anything that you've seen or heard. We'll be back next time with another Words of Matthias devotional series. Thanks for watching.